Hello, all. Glad you're here today. We're going to hang out and talk a little bit, introduce you to the community. And by the way, this is our community. Hi, guys. George Murphy here. I've been around this area for quite a while, long time. Music is really important to me, and I know it is to you because you've proven it over the years in your support and your love of the music. And we'd like to just introduce you to the current music faculty of the town of Foxborough. And here they are. I'd like to start off with the person, or one of the two people, who teaches our youngest. Begins all right here with Allison Noonan. Allison teaches at the Taylor School and the IGO. And she teaches music in so many ways. I know you do choral music too. You do a lot of singing. And you actually were a choral teacher. I actually didn't know that until you told me that. So I wasn't aware of that originally. And now you teach elementary music, but you something that you love to do. So I'd just like you to tell us what kinds of things you do with the students, what kind of things you see in them. You know, some of them are sitting there right now watching you. So, you know, tell us a little bit about what you do.
All right, great, thank you. Well, this is my 4th year here in Foxborough, and just my 4th year teaching elementary school music. So I was secondary choral, as you mentioned before. So I'd like to think I focus a lot on singing and just getting the little kids comfortable with their voices and kind of in their own skin with that, because this, you know, we're born with this instrument, and as long as we have that, we can make music at such a young age. So we do a lot of singing, a lot of movement with that, and then instruments, a lot of Orff instruments.
Explain Orff instruments. I would imagine folks don't really know what that is.
Yeah, so we're using a lot of xylophones and metallophones in my classes, glockenspiels, like the xylophone family that people might picture with all the notes lined up with the bars, but some are wooden, some are metal, so we have xylophones versus metallophones. The glockenspiels tend to be a little tiny ones, which are great for the kindergartners. We use those a lot in kindergarten.
Are those the glocks? Are those real bell sounds? Like you know,
they're more bell sounding than, say, a wooden xylophone.
Yeah.
For sure. Yes, yeah, definitely. And then we do a lot of non-pitched rhythm instruments with every grade, K to 4. You know, whether it's shakers or tambourines, bells. Lots of hand drums. We use hand drums quite a bit.
Do they use their bodies when they use the rhythm?
Yeah, we
stomping
find, yep, first, so the Orff method, yeah, to learn a song, and then you put it in your body, and then you put it on instruments. So we kind of follow that process, and I know Annette and I both do that within the elementary schools, so kind of a common thread that we use.
Do you collaborate? Do you two?
We do as much as we have time to do.
Yeah, that's one of the difficulties.
Yeah, it's really tricky with our schedules, but mostly by email. And then we see each other, you know, when we can.
Right.
But we do some email communications just to kind of see that we're on the same page.
But you're able to create your own curriculum.
Well, we've been working on curriculum. I was lucky enough to walk into a really nice curriculum already laid out. And then this year I'm currently just rewriting it in a different format that we're all doing for the town, so that all of the town's curriculum is in the same format.
Great.
But we're working, you know, we've worked on that together, and we have the same ideas. I'm just kind of putting it into words, and then I'll go back to Annette and check with her and make sure everything looks good.
Now, you said you did secondary
I did,
choral
yes.
music. That must be really different.
Yeah, it's a really big change, and quite frankly, I always pictured myself as a high school choral director my whole life, and that was what I wanted to do. And I did that for 10 years, and I loved it. And then I had kids, and it just became really challenging. So I thought, you know, the schedule, as we know with the folks here that do secondary music, it's a lot of extra commitment and nights and weekends, and just wasn't going to work out really for our family schedule at this point in our lives. So I thought, you know, I've got to make music, and I have little kids now, and I'm doing all this singing of children's songs with them anyway, so it just seemed like a great transition to the elementary world.
And the time
I'm just loving it.
frame works better?
Time frame works much better. I can kind of be with my family after 3 o'clock. I can get them off the bus, and you know, that works for where we are right now.
How many children do you have?
I have 2 children.
And what are their ages?
My son is 12. He's finishing 6th grade. And my daughter will turn 9 tomorrow. She's in 3rd grade.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Happy birthday. What's her name?
Yeah, thank you. Ava.
All right, ready, guys? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ava. Happy birthday to you. Oh, that was so cool.
Wasn't that nice? She will love that. She will love that.
All right. Thank you. You also mentioned that you're very involved in sporty things with your family, and you and your husband
we tend to be pretty
skiing and
we tend to be pretty fitness driven and just like to spend as much time outdoors. We've gotten into skiing this year just to pass the winter. We decided that's it. We need to make the best of the winter, and we did a lot of time skiing, and we love boating and swimming and running.
Oh yeah, you mentioned boating. You have a boat?
We love boating. We have a boat.
You do?
Yep.
Great.
We have a boat.
Do you do lake boating or
my father
ocean?
lives on a lake, so we
Okay.
have our own boat there that we
Nice.
keep there, and then my father-in-law has a boat out of Quincy.
Wow.
So,
So both, both sides.
Yeah.
Did you meet on a boat?
We met in Newport right by boats.
There you
go.
go.
Yeah, actually. Yeah, right by a marina. So funny you should ask. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Allie. And you're known for, the kids, of course, know you as Mrs. Noonan,
Yes,
but
yeah.
you go by Allie.
I
right?
do go by Allie. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thanks. We'd like to move on to the other teacher who teaches our youngest and has for quite a while, been around,
I was trying to figure that out. It's around 20 years.
Yeah,
I worked a lot with George.
Yeah, we did a lot of stuff together.
Yeah.
Annette Kerner is graduate of New England Conservatory and, graduated with an alto saxophone performance degree,
Yeah, I don't know
right?
what I was thinking.
Isn't that crazy?
I don't know what you think. Well, actually, I did do a little bit of soloing with it. I studied classical saxophone, and
Big mistake.
Aaron played saxophone too, but no, I really enjoyed it for a while. I think what happened is I always thought I'd play, and I used to freelance a little bit, but then I got married and I was going to help my husband get his practice started and everything, and it was just sort of putting the playing on hold. And then I had a daughter, and I said, oh, maybe I'll teach. I have a degree in music. So I went back and got my master's in education, and I really didn't think that I was going to like it, but I really do. And I didn't really think I'd be very good at it.
But you really are.
Oh, thank you.
I'll say that for you.
Well, I don't know why, but it just seems that it's a good fit for me. One thing is I'm writing songs in my head all the time. Everything in the world is music, so I have these songs going on in my head, and it's not so torturesome anymore, so I can just transfer them to lessons. Because Allie and I are lucky. We can take any form of music, and we do a lot of folk music because that's kind of a lost art form.
It is.
And I noticed when I
love
did
that.
auditions with Kirsten, she has them doing a lot of folk music. It was really beautiful folk music, and I think a lot of our culture, just some of that is getting lost. So if we can, Allie and I are lucky because we can pick any type of music we want, and we're not just teaching an instrument, we're actually incorporating some of our culture. And not just our culture, but other people's cultures, which is even more important right now in our society, I think, don't you?
Absolutely.
Because and a lot of people are, I think when I was growing up, we weren't as aware of other cultures. Now you're way more aware of other cultures just simply because of who you go to school with. It's becoming more, not as much in Foxborough, but more diverse than it ever was before. So I just think...
Can you give us an example of a song that, a lot of times parents don't know what the kids do in school. They really,
well,
it's the age-old question, what'd you do in school today? Nothing. So,
Well, what really it tickles me pink that I love to hear is when they go on these trips and they're always singing Miss Kerner's song. They come back and they say, Miss Kerner, they were all singing your song. And it's usually just the song that I taught them that week, because it's always different songs.
Sure.
But I remember one in particular that Donnie really used to teach elementary school, and he loved, I think it was it Michael Finnegan?
Oh, yeah.
I know a man named Michael Finnegan, whiskers on his chin again. He pulled them out, but Grew Finnegan, poor old Michael Finnegan, begin again.
Begin again,
And we do begin, and then there's like, you just can add any with Orff Shul work. I'm certified in Orff Shul work, so basically you can just basically take any kind of movement that you can feel the beat. That's another thing that we need more of. I think there used to be more nursery rhymes and phonics when kids were younger. We used to read to them more. My mom reminded me that of recently. She said, my daughter ended up being a 4th grade teacher. She's in her 2nd year. She just became a teacher. And she said, do you remember how much you used to read to her? And I said, not really. And she goes, you used to spend hours reading to her. My mom was a librarian. I go, well, you gave us really good books. But anyway, cool. I think you could take a lot of the nursery rhymes. Don't you think they have wonderful rhythm? And that's part of our culture too. But there's so much rhythm in nursery rhymes. And if you incorporate the beat, that's the first step to get the students up to the other teachers, is they really need to incorporate the beat. And Allie and I talk about that all the time. It really is something that is our main focus in the curriculum. No matter what we do, if you don't feel that internally, it's very difficult. A lot of music is very difficult unless you can internalize that beat. Mm-hmm. So there's, I got off track because I often do. But I don't know what I was saying, but
it's all about the beat. You know, when you ask kids, you know, what do you like about that song? Yeah. Well, I like the beat. We hear that a lot, you know, and so, you know, if you're incorporating the beat into their early lives, you know, that's going to make them feel comfortable automatically, and, you know, carry over into once you get into other parts of the music.
But you know what? It's really all about good music, because really some of the music that I'll teach them, they've never heard before, and they don't hear it at home. And I remember growing up, my mom listening to lots of Ella Fitzgerald and tons of really good music. Mm. And I think that we don't play it as much. It's more, we're more technology driven, and we're buried in other ways. I just don't think we play as much music anymore in the world as we used to.
The children find their own music so easily now that you can't monitor what they do. And you mentioned you have a child, Casey, I know her name, and she played saxophone too, didn't she?
Yeah,
for a little
not for
while?
very long. I think I annoyed her.
But you introduced it to her, and now she's teaching 4th grade.
Yes.
Elementary, 4th.
But you know what's interesting? She heard music when she was maybe, I started to get my master's when she was maybe 2 or 3, and I studied because I had to get my pass my history exam at NEC, and I remember listening. It was a very difficult exam, to lots of classical music, hours and hours, when she was like 2 or 3. And when she was in college, she took a course in music. She goes, I think this might be an interesting one. And her professor told her, she said, Mom, I don't know why I'm so good at this, but I was just like, she said, you're one of the best students I've ever had. And she said, I really don't know why, but I do know that my mom played classical music incessantly when I was really little.
My mom tied me down and put the, Clockwork Orange with the speakers.
But that just goes to show that what they get at a young age is important, don't you think? And that it incorporates in ways we don't realize.
Of course.
I wish we had music more for Allie and I in Foxborough, more time, because we're once every cycle for 40 minutes, and I have 650 students.
Wow.
So if you think about that, sometimes I'll mix their names up and say it a little, instead of like Maya and Mia, I mix up sometimes.
Yeah, well, we all do that, I think.
Or call them their brother and sisters. That's my brother. Oh, I'm sorry. You look just like him. But anyway.
All right. Well, thank you, Miss Kerner. Jenny Greenleaf, Jennifer, Jenny G, famous as Jenny G. Jenny was a student of mine in 5th grade, and I've known her since she was 10. So it can be something. It's really cool that that I get to still kind of watch what you're doing now at this stage in your life. And Jenny's a graduate of Foxborough, obviously, and plays the clarinet and multiple other instruments, I know. And you also graduated and went to Ithaca College.
Yep.
Got a music degree there. You got your ed degree. And did you do some performance things there too?
I didn't major in performance, but I did.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. But you did a lot of performing, so forth. And then when you came out, you taught in Fall River for 1 year. and then went to West Bridgewater, or Bridgewater?
Bridgewater-Raynham.
Bridgewater-Raynham, for 1 year as well? Okay, so then you got the big call to come and
Yes.
hang out here in Foxville. You took my job.
I did.
I love it. So Jenny is the assistant high school band director, as well as teaching 5th grade, mainly in the Ahern. That's your main job, but you also do orchestra and
yeah. So
lessons
I do 5th grade band, 6th and 7th grade orchestra.
7th grade orchestra.
6 and 7, and then I also do the jazz band after school at the middle school.
Oh yeah, that's right. The jazz band just performed recently too.
Yeah, we've had multiple. We're like a real band. We performed 3 concerts in 3 weeks.
Oh really?
Yeah, we got another one next week.
Wow, doing gigs with the kids
I know,
already.
right?
Yeah, cool. And so what kinds of things do you focus on with the students? What would you say is your go-to, focus with them?
Well, teaching the 5th grade beginner band, a lot of the things I teach are actually very related to what they do in the elementary schools. So I focus a lot on, rhythm and beat and finding internal time and thinking about music and how it, how it logically fits into certain amounts of beats and things like that, especially at that age. I also focus a lot on producing good habits right at the beginning of their instrument learning. I think it's really important to, 1, have a good instrument, and then 2, start off with the right way so that later in their musical career they're not trying to fix basic things that could have been fixed at the beginning.
So when parents are looking at this and they're hearing you say that, what are some of the things that they should be looking at with their children playing the instruments at home? Should they be sitting on the floor or on the couch or on the bed? What kind of things would you say to the parents?
The best thing that you could do is first purchase a music stand. It's an important thing for the student to be able to have a good posture while playing. Posture is very important. They can stand if they want. That's a great posture. If it's a larger instrument or anything like that, cellos, of course, stuff like that, they need to sit. They should sit on some sort of really nice chair that has like a hard-ish, bottom, where they can sit sort of on the front edge of their chair with their back straight and their shoulders back. And that will help them breathe deep through the diaphragm, which will help them produce a good sound. The other thing that's so funny with 5th graders I love is they try to bring their body to the instrument, but in the idea is to bring the instrument to your body. So making sure the saxophone neck strap is up high enough so the mouthpiece fits in the mouth, and the trumpet is straight from your body, not towards the floor. Again, keeping the shoulders back.
So if the saxophone mouthpiece is down here and the kid's going like this to get to it, that's what you mean by
their bodies in very
bringing the body
interesting
to the
ways.
instrument. Yeah.
Sometimes I'm surprised how they even do it, but but it is an important aspect. And
do you incorporate singing because they're coming from a singing culture?
We do. I do a lot of singing actually. We learn solfege syllables for scales, and that is how I communicate notes to the students, because in band, when the clarinets play C and the saxophones are playing G, so I cannot just say, all right, let's all play C. It doesn't work for all the instruments. So instead, right from the beginning, we learn do, re, mi, fa, sol, 5 notes. And I can say, all right, let's everyone play this. Do, re, mi, fa, fa. And everyone can play their own notes, even though clarinet's playing C, altos G, B flats, and everything like that. So it works well, and then it also works really well for ear training, so that they start to hear the relationships of do and sol. That's like really common, how the scale works, and it works really well because Kirsten does so much solfege singing in chorus, and we have, half the band is in chorus as well. That's kind of a cool thing about our town, is that they can do both, and they tend to do both at the younger ages, which is perfect for their own knowledge. So it's funny, they'll come in from chorus the next day, and I'll be doing the same thing she's been doing, and they smile. They think it's hysterical. They don't realize we're teaching the same thing until it's the same. So it was, they taught me the hand signs from the do, re, mi hand signs the other day.
That's cool.
The chorus kids, and I let them
teach
the
love doing that
kids.
too.
They do.
Love
they
teaching
love it.
you.
Oh yeah. So it's nice that it's very, cross-curricular through that.
Yeah, they look at you as the band person and her as the choral person, and they don't think you even know each other. Right. Whereas, it's funny, they do that, you guys talk, So personally, I know that you live in town, and you come back to this area and stayed in the area, and you do some fun things. I know you're a big puzzle person.
Yes.
That's always amazing to me, the puzzles that she can do.
I don't know if that's considered fun for many people, but
well, it's something that is really unique.
I'm a very visual person, and I really enjoy shapes. That's a weird sentence, but so it's extremely satisfying when you find the piece to fit into the other pieces, and when it's done, and you're like, I made that.
What do you do
really
with all those
it.
puzzles that you make?
I take pictures, I put them back in the box, and I trade them with my mom and her friends.
No kidding. Oh,
Yes.
wow. I know some people, put polyurethane on them and hang them and things like that.
Someday I'll.
But
My dream would be have like a room in a house, if I ever can afford a house, where I take all the puzzles and just stick them on the wall.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Maybe
someday.
you have them on your wall somewhere. Yeah, that's cool.
So.
And Jenny is also very proficient at hula hooping.
Yeah.
She can hula hoop and play her clarinet at the same time and do other things, cook, whatever. She's
Yes.
really, how did you get into that?
It was a college thing. I went to Ithaca,
Really?
and it was kind of a hippie town, and people tried to spend as much time outside as they could because it got cold at like the end of September. So when it was nice out, everybody was outside, and it was kind of a thing we did at the beginning of the year. My friend came back with a hula hoop our sophomore year that she had it from the summer, and we tried it, and she had made the hula hoops, so we went and bought all the materials, and we made like
You make your
15
own, yeah.
hula hoops, and that was
Really-
it. I was very into it. Yes. So I really consider it more like dancing for a reason. So you're basically dancing, but also
amazing.
doing
Yeah, it's
some
really
tricks.
physical.
So it's
Yeah.
kind of I love dance. I mean, I love hula hooping to music, obviously. It's my favorite thing. So
Yeah.
sometimes I hear songs and think that would be a great song to hula hoop to. So so I don't do it too often, very busy, but I love to get back to it, usually in the summer months.
So
when I'll
that's a
start
college
again.
thing. Wow.
Yeah?
Great. Well, thank you,
Thank you.
Jenny Greenleaf. Kirsten Oberoi, newly married, I guess, in a couple of years. Your original name was Shetler, and a lot of the kids knew you as Miss Shetler because you came here as that, and then they had to kind of learn your new name. Now it's kind of over, right? They're all over that. There's some of them still?
Depends on the kid.
Okay, yeah. And you're our newest staff member. You can tell us a little bit more, but I know Kirsten came into the program 2 years. This is your
This is my second year.
second year. And I think you're also the youngest of the staff members. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
So that's cool. I mean, everyone's young to me, so it's great to see. And you also, in addition to being the choir director at the Ahern, you work at the high school quite a bit, which she does on her own time. Nobody pays her to do that. And it would be great if we got a full-time choral position in this town so that we could keep you here, because it's so valuable to have the same level of instruction for vocal music that we have for instrumental music. When we really look at the vocal, there's really two main vocal for 5 through 12. And there's 5 instrumental. So that's, it's not really fair to the vocalists and to the kids in music in general. I'm going off on a little thing because it's so important to me. But you also have a choir that you run. It's called the South Shore Singers?
South Shore Children's Chorus.
South Shore Children's Chorus, which you can tell us a little bit about. But getting back to Foxborough and what you do here, in addition to teaching, the choral music, what are the focuses that you would say you go for?
Well, a couple of different things that are really important as a foundation. Number one, as vocalists, we, unlike instruments, don't have buttons. We don't have any way to find our pitch except to learn the feeling of what singing in tunes feels like. And that's a very difficult aspect because I can't look and see if they're pressing the wrong button. I have to diagnose what's happening inside of the body that's creating a wrong pitch. Sometimes it's their listening, sometimes it's their vocal production, sometimes it's their development and their changing bodies. So a lot of what I do is really foundational and ear training. And as Jenny said, I do about 20 to 25 minutes of ear training every class for 5th and 6th grade to really give them a solid foundation where they can hear and understand, using the language of solfege, where pitches are in relation to other pitches and pull them from the air and sing them correctly.
So let's clarify a couple things for
Sure.
our audience. Solfege is a word that may not be common to everyone's awareness, and the other thing that you mentioned was solfege. Let's start with, I haven't, the other thought about what you said, but solfege, start with that.
Sure. Solfege is our musical language, and it's a language that was created to identify the space between various notes and the distance between various notes. And most people know the language of solfege from the famous song from The Sound of Music. Do, a deer, a female deer, re, a drop of golden sun, and so on and so forth. And using those particular syllables, we're able to teach interval training and the space between different notes, and using the hand signs that go with each syllable, we're able to give vocalists more or less a button that helps them kinesthetically understand where pitches are in the world, rather than just picking them out of thin air. So it's a very big teaching tool.
And that hand motion really helps them.
Absolutely.
Would you mind demonstrating that?
Sure.
We can all sing with you, I guess, because
Yeah.
we all know it.
Absolutely.
It's basically do, re, mi. You know, that's the language of solfege. So can you show us the hand signals?
Sure.
please?
So the hand signs are do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. And actually, a fun fact is each of the hand signs actually has to do with the pitch and the direction of the pitch. So do is like a rock, it's our home pitch. Re points up to and leads to mi, which is a plane that's very stable. Fa points down to mi because it normally resolves there.
Knew that.
And then sol is also the second most stable hand sign because it's our second most stable pitch. La is a lifted pitch that's above sol that resolves to sol. Ti points up at do because that's where it normally resolves. So each of the hand signs has theoretical basis as well that eventually I teach them, though that's not for a while.
That's cool. So now you can use hand signs, like Jenny uses do to tell all the kids what note they're going to play. You can say do, mi, and they will sing those pitches eventually.
Absolutely. That's actually one of my favorite games to play. About 5 minutes per class in 5th and 6th grade, we play I Sign, You Sing, where I give them an initial pitch. And then I move my hand, and they sing with my hand, and sometimes we'll do it in 2 parts, and so on and so forth. And we get them singing different pitches, jumping around each other, so that way by the end of 6th grade, they're able to sing any pattern of diatonic pitches within the scale from thin air.
I've seen that. It's amazing. It really is. It's awesome. It's so
And it's
cool.
incredibly important for them to move on as vocalists, to be able to sing in tune and to hear pitches and to understand that kind of language.
The other thing that I was struck by when you said the development of their bodies, you know, we have to realize that at that age, you're hearing kids singing, you know, obviously 5th graders, boys, are all singing in their high pitch, and they're all singing. And then as they become 7th graders, mostly, I would say, right, they start to really change, so their voices go crazy. The girls change much?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's day to day. Sometimes they will come in and say, I feel weird, I can't sing today. And I'm like, that's fine. Just mouth it. And you just let them go, because that's, you know, as I consider myself, I have to be very aware of their anatomy and their changing anatomies. And that's something that I've studied and I've read extensively about. So just as much as a health teacher is teaching them about their changing bodies, I have to also know what's happening inside of their bodies that can help them change, so that when they say to me, when a 13-year-old girl says to me, my voice sounds so breathy and it doesn't sound like the person next to me, and I'm bad at singing and I want to quit. I can explain to them, well, your voice sounds breathy because your vocal cords are changing, your vocal folds are getting bigger, and so therefore they're not coming together totally, and there's breath escaping because one is changing at a faster rate than the other one. Just wait a month. And they'll grow, and then all of a sudden that breath escapes from their sound and they feel more confident. But the tough thing is being able to create the relationship with the student where they can trust that and not just quit because all of a sudden today it feels very different.
Now, what about your chorus in Quincy, South Shore?
Yeah, so in addition to Foxborough, I'm very passionate about choral music. I grew up in Quincy, and I didn't have a community chorus that I was able to join because I had working parents that couldn't drive me into Boston, and I realized that there was a really big need in the South Shore for a community chorus. So I run a nonprofit organization. I am the artistic director of the organization, and it has programs for children kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. So I have I only direct the high school group that meets on Sunday nights, and then I work with 2 other conductors that conduct as well.
And your husband is a choral teacher as well.
He is.
Do you collaborate much?
Yes, we used to collaborate a lot more. We met in collaboration, so that was kind of cool. But right now we're both pretty busy. He's finishing up his doctorate and graduates next week in choral conducting.
Oh, really?
And then, and I have the children's chorus and this, so we don't get to collaborate quite as much, but hoping to do so again sometime soon.
Great. All right, well, thank you, Kirsten. I'm going to go over to Mr. Glynn, Robert Scott Glynn.
That's the full name.
Now, Bobby teaches all the middle school teachers teach everything. They teach all the ages in all the classes. But you, if I can get it right, I know you teach 6th grade band and 7th grade band primarily.
Yeah.
And then you do general music classes. You do a lab for 5th graders, or you do a general music for 5th?
5th grade general music.
And
8th grade music technology.
Oh, 8th grade, okay.
Yeah.
And so it's a technology class. We have a computer lab with computers and some great software that has been developed over the years that the kids use.
Yeah.
But you're also a percussionist. That's your main instrument. Mm-hmm. And I know that you play professionally still, and you went to UMass Amherst.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a few other of the alumni from UMass.
Yeah.
And when did you graduate from there?
2011 is when I finished.
And where did you teach before? I don't know that. I don't know where you...
So after I graduated there, I taught for 4 years in Bellingham.
Bellingham, I knew, yeah, right.
So not too far from here.
Yep.
And then I moved up to Burrell for 1 year, which is right below the New Hampshire border. I didn't know where it was until I got that job. And then after that year is when Ted Haggerty retired, and I now have his position.
Well, you student taught with Mr. Haggerty.
Right. So during my last year of UMass, I came here and student taught with Ted, and some of these guys were around as well during that time. And that's really when I fell in love with teaching middle school music, because of working with him and working here.
So would you say that band teaching is your favorite thing, or is it just do you like the band more than the general music classes, or?
I really like teaching middle school kids.
Just in general? In
general, yeah. Mm-hmm. It started through instrumental music because that's what it is, band music specifically, but especially the last couple of years teaching here, now that I'm starting to teach more general music and a lot of orchestra with Cami, I'm realizing how much I really love all of it, and just getting to work with kids it's a blast. It's fun every day, most days.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So what kinds of things would you say you focus on with the band students in general, to start with?
So in band, I have this really kind of unique position, I think, where I get to see them for their 2 middle years of middle school in 6th and 7th grade. So I get to essentially pick them up when Jenny's done in 5th grade and start kind of from where they ended. starting to playing just a few notes of a couple scales. We do all the same sorts of singing and rhythms that they've done in 5th grade. And what I really like is by going through the progression of the 6th grade and 7th grade year, we really take them from kids who are just kind of pushing down buttons with just blowing air through this thing to really, hopefully, starting to understand why composers have written those certain notes and how their part relates to all of these other parts around them. And not that they don't do that in 5th grade, it's just as they get older, kind of like a book or math problems, it gets more and more complex. So there's more things for us to listen to and to work on. So we really get to dive into the understanding of what it is they're doing at a deeper level, in addition to trying to extend their technique, so they're just technical ability on each instrument. Yeah.
So what kinds of things would you say to parents that you would expect to be hearing from students at that age?
For me, first and foremost is that they're just hearing the instrument at home, that the instrument is going home on a regular basis.
Amen.
And honestly, I find that's the hardest thing, is to take the instrument home and then to take it out of the case once it's home, which is also can be very difficult. But once that happens, honestly, even if they just play it for 5 or 10 minutes a day, it's kind of like brushing your teeth. You do it for a couple minutes a day every day, and you're fine. You can't brush your teeth for an hour once a week and expect the same results, or learn a language, or whatever it is, other thing you're trying to learn. Just hearing it regularly, at least on the weekends, if not more frequently. And parents, I always tell parents, the best thing you can do is set up, have a family concert, have them play it over FaceTime for grandma or their uncle or someone, or just at Thanksgiving if you happen to have family around or friends around to play it, or to set up play dates with their friends who are also in band or orchestra, and don't just go play video games, but why not see if you can play a clarinet and a violin together, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So really just that they're playing, and that they're, my biggest goal is that they leave me in 7th grade enjoying music and having enjoyed their time. I'm less concerned about how long they continue to play that instrument, and more, do they appreciate and value music, and making music specifically, not just listening to it, but actually being involved in making it.
Yeah.
Which I think it's important for every human to experience and to have experience with.
That's so true, and it's something we all, I would imagine all of you experience the same thing I experience. I have never met anyone who has said, I'm really glad I quit the trumpet in 6th grade.
Never.
Never. It's always the opposite. I wish I kept playing. I wish my parents would have made me do it. My own daughter was ripped at me when she had her first kid, and she said, why did you let me quit the piano? Now I can't play it,
Yeah.
And, you realize, wow, it is our responsibility as parents to really make that happen.
Yeah.
So,
and it's a tough age to make that happen, because that's when kids are probably most challenging the authority that's around them. Not out of malice, just out of them being 12, 13 years old, trying to figure out where the boundary line is in every situation that they're in. That's just part of being that age. But when push comes to shove, we hope, us as teachers as well as parents say, I'm sorry, but now you need to sit down and play your horn for 5 minutes.
Right.
Because we love you.
And as they get better, you mentioned that you would hope that they would leave, those 2 years and say, hey, I really like this. And I think that if they're better at it, if they improve, they're going to like it more.
Right.
Look with the video games, just use that as an example. I don't know anything about video games, so I don't play because I can't stand it. I'm no good at it. So, if the kids spend a lot of time with video games, they get really good at it, they want to do it more and more. And all you parents have to go out and buy more games because they go through them all. But, an instrument, you can play that forever,
Yeah. 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 And it's hard because we want it to be fun, of course. And it's hard if a child's complaining about doing something, to keep forcing it. But it's kind of just those couple of rough years. If you get over that hump, then you'll be fine.
And you developed a website, or I guess you put it on a website that you have, where you teach students how to play instruments in the beginning.
Yeah. So I actually ended up a few years ago now. I made a series of videos for every beginning instrument each video is about 5 minutes, and each instrument has about 7, 8, 9 videos to kind of go through like the first 6 to 8 weeks of learning a new instrument. And I essentially made that for kids to be able to go home and put on YouTube and play and remember all the things that we go through in class, because there's a lot going on in class, especially in the first few weeks.
Just how to put it together and how to care for it. And,
exactly. And so you're going to miss steps. So you can go home and just watch the video. And really, I also made it for parents to be able to sit down with their kid.
That's where I was going, right.
And be able to, because I mean, how many parents have let's say a clarinet player, a 5th grader, who don't know how to put a clarinet together or make a sound? You know, I find that can be really uncomfortable for people to want to help their kid, but they don't know what to do. That's kind of the thinking behind all those videos.
Yeah.
I haven't watched them in a few years, but they're still
good.
up there.
They're very good. And then you also have a book that you put together of just tunes folk tunes. We were talking about that at the earliest stages. There's a book of I would say most of that music is folk music, or at least, you know, that style of, I mean, we could call folk music, you know, Smoke on the Water.
Right,
you know, I mean, in our, you know, it's kind of folk music for us too.
Yeah. Well, part of our teaching, especially in grades 5, 6, 7, and 8, is, of course, our band music and the literature and the academic side of it that we really stress and push, but also we just want to, I'll spend the last 5 minutes of a class like, all right, let's just play for fun. Let's play Iron Man for fun. Let's play We Will Rock You for the younger kids, or let's play, learn how to play the national anthem today. You know, these are maybe not folk songs from hundreds of years ago, but they're certainly folk to who we are today in this country, and the songs that we all know.
Things like SpongeBob,
SpongeBob SquarePants,
Star Wars.
Oh yeah, you got to learn how to play those. And honestly, students would be more apt to play those at home, and that's fine. If they're playing their instrument, great.
Absolutely.
And if they're loving it while they do it, great.
Yeah, that's great. Now, what about personally? What kind of things do you like to do outside of school?
I've recently gotten into CrossFit training, thanks to Ms. Tadoldi, who is big into that as well. So that actually takes up most of my days after school. I'll head over there and lift heavy things and drop them on the ground. And
you haven't done the rave yoga yet with these two?
I'm not there yet. That I like cycling a lot, also thanks to Donnie, who's a great cyclist. Yeah. And I'm actually currently planning to go ride a bike across Switzerland this summer. That's like, it's going to be my gift to myself. So
I heard when you
I'm
told me that, I thought that was
now.
Amazing. Just in that one country, are you going to cross into Italy or anything like that?
No, it hits Austria a little bit, but it's
yeah.
essentially from the west side to the east side, and then that's it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Are you going to do that with other people, or?
Oh, I'm actually going alone.
Wow.
So hopefully I make it.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's great. Hopefully I make it.
But yeah. Yeah, and I think that a lot of that kind of consumes my time to keep it. I mean, I love teaching and I love music and making music, but I also love seeing what else life has to offer, so that kind of keeps me balanced.
And you're from Brockton.
I grew up, born and raised in Brockton, Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah. Now, that alone is a whole history.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And you had Vinnie Macrina, who's a legend in Brockton. If anyone else is maybe watching this that might know anything about Brockton, that name is synonymous with music, just like Steve Massey is in this town.
Yeah, yeah. I was very fortunate. I mean, that, you know, I can't deny that certainly helped me decide to go major in music, was to be in a high-quality music program in high school and to kind of feel and experience what that's like. So that, at least if nothing else, pushed me to go at least see what studying music more than that would be.
But you're like the opposite of Vinnie Macrina when you teach. I know him. He's he's a fist pumping kind of, real hardcore. Your style is very mellow and very easygoing. The kids really respond to that in a great way. Is that something you think about a lot, or is it just your natural way of doing it?
I observe it when I observe myself and reflect on my teaching, but no, that's, I think for the most part, just kind of how I am, and I found I've tried to copy people in teaching over the years, and it's never been that successful because I can't copy anyone. I have to just be who I am. So I found, especially in the last year, I think, a good balance of maintaining a level of respect for students, and in turn students will respect me as their teacher, and just being very calm and open and pleasant with them. Man, anytime that boundary is pushed, I'll make sure that they're aware that they shouldn't push that boundary in a professional and nice way.
I know, you always,
they will learn.
I have visions of watching you many times, and you'll say, no, I asked you not to sit like that. Now would you please sit the right way? And 5 minutes later, you know, I asked you several times not to sit like that. And I go, wow, you know, you want to pick the child up sometimes, you know, and just show them, you know, but you're so mellow with them, you know. Yeah. Don't be like me, don't do that.
Yeah, I think they respond well to it.
Yeah.
And it just works for me, so. Just
constant staying on it, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Glynn. I'm going to cross over to Mr. Bush. Ahern Bush is the new high school band director. Big responsibility to take over for a legend, as we all know.
What was his name again?
Yeah, that guy, you know. You know, it's there's a video of Mr. Massey with Wynton Marsalis, and a lot of people say, who's that guy with Mr. Massey? You know, because he is so strong, and you know, his program is right here. All of us, you know, have been influenced by him, and you know, I don't want to make that the impetus, but it's not hidden. It's the elephant in the room. I get the question all the time, to be honest with you, Ahern. How's Mr. Bush doing? You know, how's it going in Foxborough without the big guy? You know, and it's so easy for me to say it's going great. You know, Ahern was a student of Mr. Massey's in so many ways, not necessarily a Foxborough student, but you met Mr. Massey when you were 14 years old.
I did.
At a camp that he ran for many years in the South Shore as well, in Hingham. Mm-hmm. And so Ahern's from Bridgewater, East Bridgewater. Plays the saxophone and other instruments very well. But saxophone was what you went to school and so forth and played. And then as you became more UMass,
yep.
And as you became, you know, into your later years, you continued your relationship with Mr. Massey. And that's how I met you, was through you coming and observing him and so forth. So I've known you for quite a while too. And then you student taught with Mr. Massey. And then we couldn't get rid of you because he just kept coming back. And actually, you know, Fred Harris, I can think of other people that same way, you know. The ones who were really into it, you know, student teaching, wanted to hang around more. So that was to your credit. I'm obviously teasing. But then you went on to teach in Holbrook, I think, for 1 year?
I did, yes.
Was it 1 year?
I taught in Holbrook for 1 year.
Yeah.
Doing general music, what these cats do. And I was horrible at it. I mean, really, really bad.
It's just go do it.
Yeah.
I was horrible my first year too.
It does take time. It's like anything.
He would have been good at it. I went to his concert the other night. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And Mr. Massey was there too. At
Oh
the
yeah.
concert,
Oh yeah. He loves it.
Yeah.
So
I thought she was going to say, no, you weren't horrible at teaching elementary school, but you just said
it takes time.
Yeah.
Maybe you weren't. I never saw.
So that was good. So that's good. Yeah, I taught for a year in Holbrook.
And then you went to Needham right after that and
Yes.
stayed there for 9 years?
Yeah, 9 or 10. Yeah,
Okay.
one of the two. I always forget.
So
I
you'd
think it was
really
9.
developed your teaching skills
Yes.
and band and so forth. And your Needham middle school bands became well known throughout the region as being excellent. Your work over there was clearly obvious to everyone who was in this business and understood what you were doing over there. So that kind of prepared you for the moment that Mr. Massey called you and said, "Are you in?" How did that go? How did that really happen?
All right. Well, so he told the staff, and when it was made public knowledge that he was retiring, members of the staff called me and said, it's time. He's retiring. And I always thought that he had at least 25 to 30 years left in his career. But it was definitely a shock. And you know, I was very fortunate to work in Needham for 9 years. And it was the joy of my life. I created a program, and you know, my first students are now, you know, 20, 26 years old, 25, 26 years old, and have gone on, and some of them are teachers now. And I thought I would be there for the rest of my career. I was perfectly happy just doing that and doing that hang at Needham, because it was a fantastic community and wonderful students and parents and community members. The only thing that would have made me leave that job is to apply in Foxborough. And I was notified that he was retiring, and I immediately decided I'm going to go for it, because I love Foxborough. I've always loved Foxborough and the people in it, and it's always held the most special place in my heart. And I consider the year that I student taught with Steve and formed that relationship, of which the same relationship I have with you. Everything that I say about Steve being like a father figure to me, the same goes for you, big guy. And it changed my life, meeting Steve and you, and working there for a year, student teaching, and seeing, in my opinion, the finest example of education, and working with young people, and also the finest staff anywhere. So I decided to apply, and I went and I Steve actually didn't call me to ask me to apply at first. I kind of went in to just talk to him to see if he would bring it up. So I went in on a Friday afternoon, like in April, and I said, "Hey man, you know, how you doing? How's things going?" And we talked about Needham a little bit, and then there was one of those awkward silences that always happens when I would talk to him, and he looked at me and said, "I want you to know I've decided to retire at the end of this year, and I'm hoping you would consider applying." And I immediately began crying uncontrollably. And he said, "Control yourself, man. You gotta pull yourself together here." And we talked about it a lot, and he, you know, gave me his encouragement that he always was so willing to provide, and I went through the process and was fortunate enough to get the gig. And it's been, I can honestly say so far, it's been one of the best years of my life. And it's because of the students. I was fortunate to kind of know all the students in the band, because like you said, you can't really get rid of me around here. So I would always come back, you know, when I was working at Needham, and I would observe concerts, and I would take a personal day at Needham, and I would spend the day in Foxborough, or I would go, you know, catch the end of a gig, or catch the end of a rehearsal or whatever at 9 o'clock at night till 9:30, and talk with him whenever I could. And so I got to know the students. So I actually knew most of the students coming in. And it was great to see them go through the program, and then now have the total blessing of working with them as their teacher. So I love the students, and I've been fortunate to be, you know, close friends with pretty much the entire staff here before I got the job. So I love the students, I love the community and the staff, and so it's, in many ways, it's like I've come home, and it means so much to me, because you know, people say if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And that really is like the motto of my life right now.
Well, I don't know about that, because you have to work many hours.
I do, yeah. That stuff where you ask them what else they do, that you don't need to ask that.
You don't have any time,
because I don't do anything else. Yeah. Yeah, it is a lot of time.
Well,
but
I don't know. You've gone to Vegas, and you know, I think there's a little bit of that little gambling thing in.
All right.
He's a really good poker player. You
There's
know.
that.
Yeah.
There it is.
There's a little poker in you.
Poker.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
It's a
cool.
thinking man's game, George.
Texas Hold'em.
It's a thinking man's game. Yeah. So, but it is a lot of long hours. But I mean, the most important thing I can do. I mean, my biggest goal. You know, when taking over for Steve, is to maintain the level of excellence that has existed here for, you know, 35, 40 years. And the best way you can maintain excellence is to work really hard and have the same standard, the same expectation that's always been there, and that means a lot of time on task. So I knew what I was signing up for, and I'm happy to do it. And it is long days, but I mean, I go home really, really tired every day, but I wake up completely ready to go every morning whenever I get here at like 3:15, 2:45 in the morning, whatever it is.
Well, like you said, you also have a wonderful staff, you know.
The best.
Jenny's there every day, Donnie and Cammie, Brian, you're all in the high school all together,
Yeah.
and they have your back, right? You know,
Yeah, yeah.
You know that, and they're going to hold you to a higher standard anyway.
Yes.
Because they've incorporated that in their own teaching, so, and that's kind of cool to have.
It
that.
is, and
the
it's
friendships that, you know.
Yeah, it's one of the best draws of this program is, you know, when I took the job, everybody's like, oh, that's so much work for one person. How could one person ever do all of the stuff that Steve did? And I said, well, I'm not really. You know, I have a team of people that work with me, and we can collaborate, and I trust the people that I work with, and I know that they teach with the same high standards that I have, and I'm very thankful to have them. Especially Jenny and Donnie in band. I mean, I know that I have two world-class musicians and educators that are in every single class with me. So if I don't know how to do something, I guarantee you they do. Or they'll tell me how to do it.
No question, right, Jenny? Ahern. So it's like this. One of the things I remember you said when you're the director of music in Needham, when you had to finally tell him that you were moving on and you accepted the job, he said, can you tell me why? Because he didn't want you to leave that job. And I think I remember you saying the first thing you said was, there's an unbelievable staff that I'm going to be able to work with, that I'm going to have the opportunity to work with this staff.
I mean, I think it's the best music staff anywhere. And I can say that, you know, as someone who's just being part of it. It's at every single level. I mean, my God. I mean, this cat over here talking about solfege and the expectations she has in her classroom is amazing. And one of the cool things about my gig, too, is that every day I get to go down to the Ahern. So I get to spend time with all the middle school kids and the middle school staff, and I get to see Bobby teach, and I get to see Cammie teach, and I get to see Jenny teach, and Kirsten. And I'm going, man, I mean, I didn't know any of that stuff when I was teaching middle school. Like, this, and they all work in collaboration, and to be a part of that and to be able to sit in their classes and play trumpet in the 7th grade band, or today, like, improvise on the blues with the you know, 5th grade orchestra. It's so cool, and then it's so wonderful because I also get a chance to forge relationships with those students when they're in 5th grade and 6th grade and 7th grade. So by the time when the time comes for them to decide, do they want to be part of the music program at the high school, it's like, oh yeah, it's Mr. Bush. We've seen him kind of awkwardly sitting next to us playing the trumpet for the past 4 years. I'm going to be in the high school band with him, you know? So I look forward to that as it develops over the years. But, yeah.
Great. So how was the tour, your first tour with the students
Yeah,
this
man.
year?
The tour, we each year, as members of the community know, we go on our performance tour. And this year we went to Washington, D.C., and it was wonderful. I mean, I want to say I'm shocked and surprised at the professionalism and maturity of the students, but I've always known it's there. I mean, I remember the tour that I went on when I student taught in 2006 with you, and we went. I was in your hotel room, and I remember he woke up. I don't know if you guys know this. So he would wake up at 5 and do like push-ups, and you were walking around town. He said, you know, Bush baby, you want to come with me on this walk? And I went, yeah. No, I'm gonna stay here.
We just got to bed. What are you doing
up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was wonderful. We performed at several places. We took part in the Festival of Music. We did this wonderful exchange with a suburb school in DC, where our students went in and played for more underprivileged students, and it was a wonderful perspective offering experience, both for them and for our students too. And I got to see the students interact with each other outside of school. And I love these kids. So to spend time with them, I told them on the ride home on the bus, I have so many colleagues in music education in other towns that dread trips. Like, oh, I got to take my kids to Canopy Lake Park, or I got to go away for 2 days to New York City, or I got to do this thing, and I just want to be home, and I wish I didn't have to spend time outside of school. And I told them, I love spending time with you guys. It was so wonderful to be able to take 4 days and travel outside of Massachusetts and to spend time with you and to be around people of high quality like you. It was very special for me. So I look forward to things like that.
Yeah. You get to know them in a totally different, and they get to know you in a totally different way.
Yeah, yeah.
And to see you standing on the podium waving around.
Yeah. So it's...
Well, the left hand, yeah.
Yes, I do conduct with my left hand because I'm not a good teacher. So, but yeah, it's been a wonderful year so far. And I said it like when I took the job, it's the joy of my life. Teaching here with the staff. And
so personally, you have
nothing going on.
Well, you live in Hyde Park.
I do live in Hyde Park.
You do have a girlfriend that you've been with for quite a while.
I do, yes.
Kendra.
Kendra. She works in Boston for a nonprofit health organization, and she's also in her free time a stand-up comedian. So.
And you're her material.
I provide several pieces of material for her. Yes. So that's good. And I know you guys all want to go see her perform, so you can sit there.
We'll know all about it.
Laugh at me. There it is. I do. I get to spend as much time as I can. But it's cool because she does a lot of comedy stuff at night, or in the late afternoon when I'm, still doing work after school or late at night on Wednesdays. Yeah. So it works out fine, and I'm a happy guy. I got the best life you could ever imagine. I love what I do, and I'm fortunate.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave it there.
Man.
It's wonderful. Welcome,
Thank you
to all of us. Donnie Albro, the rogue musician here. Donnie. Donnie's from Duxbury originally. Went to a great program there. They've had a really excellent program in music for many years there, with Jill. Well, Jill wasn't there when Jill Nuremberg.
She came when I was a freshman in high school.
Oh, so you did have her for, and Rick Madrew was your band teacher, who's very well known in the South Shore area. Donnie's a percussionist, and still plays professionally. You're really a mallet player. Would you say that's something that's...
I like doing all the things, I like playing drum set, and I like playing...
Well, you have to play something at every choral concert. We know that.
Yeah.
You're always...
I'm the chorus percussion expert.
So any concert we ever see with the chorus, any chorus, we're going to see Donnie playing something.
It's on the side somewhere.
Right.
We're so lucky to have him.
I know.
Donnie, we're doing this song. Can you play djembe?
Yeah, it's awesome to have that ability. And
monster musician.
Yeah. Donnie hears everything. You've been in Foxborough. Well, let me go back. You also went to college, but you went to Eastman School of Music, and several of the other staff members were more local, UMass, and Ithaca's in New York too. So, Rochester is down the street in New York, Rochester, New York, where Eastman School of Music is, and for those of you that don't know, Eastman School of Music is considered to be one of the finest music education, or music colleges anywhere in the world. And for you to even be accepted there is pretty high standards. So the fact that you were a student there and went there and graduated and did all your work there is obviously a testament of your musicianship. So we know that, you've been teaching here 12 years?
I think it's 11 or 12.
11 or 12, yeah. I knew it was you.
Yeah.
So you were the, other than Annette, the longest standing.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the elder, George.
You are, and I know. I got that. I'm done. You teach the high school, obviously. As a percussionist, Donnie does quite a bit of work with the percussion ensembles at school, and he's responsible for keeping that all together, which is, we all know, is very difficult to do. So you teach the high school. When they split the band, the band is a large group, and then the band splits into what we call the symphonic winds and the wind ensemble. So the wind ensemble is usually conducted by Mr. Bush, I would say primarily, and then the symphonic winds, which is mostly the younger students, would be conducted by Jenny and Donnie. They kind of split that, and probably collaborate in some ways. But so that's another big responsibility that you have your own group, and you also teach all the grades at the middle school, as all the other staff members do. And I think that's one of the coolest things about our curriculum and our staffing, is that the Sue Abrams, the principal down there, really lets us, I keep saying us, I'm no longer us, but I can't help it, lets the staff really kind of do their thing, and Cammie has, obviously worked with her on, how to let everyone do what they do best, but you get to learn so much. I know you work with the strings, and you work with the band, and you work, general music classroom. So why don't you give us a little bit of focus, as I've asked everyone, on what kinds of things you look for in your teaching and the expectations and so forth.
I guess sometimes when I think about teaching any ensemble, especially to younger students, it's kind of a unique experience in their life, because they don't really have another experience where young men and women are working together as a team that way. For the most part, their competitive sports are boys basketball, girls basketball. And I think it's a unique opportunity to learn what it feels like to really work collaboratively with a lot of people to try to produce a product. Because for the most part, their sports are one gender, and we're working in a heterogeneous grouping. So it's a unique experience, and I think it's also a unique experience to start to realize that it's a big group of people, but that your contribution affects everybody else. So I think it's a good experience to learn about kind of personal responsibility, a little bit like we have 50 people, but every person matters. It's not 45 of them matter and 5 of them just sort of hang out on the bench. We all work as a team all the time.
There's no bench.
Nope, there is no bench. Everybody's on the field the whole time, and we just call it a stage. So it's a good opportunity to learn what it feels like to really work like a team. And I think a big part of what I'm hoping that they're learning is, on some level, that part of that big team functions from a basic level of respect for each other. And in music, I think the best way we can show respect for others is how we listen, I think. And I think hopefully maybe that's something that, whether they realize it on a conscious or a subconscious level, they take with them to whatever they do, this concept that really listening to other people is kind of the best way to function as a team. I think sometimes in our society right now is very loud on some level, and there's a lot of sort of shouting and not listening. So maybe if we can just learn how to listen, things might clear up a little bit. And maybe that's a great opportunity, because if I'm playing the trumpet and I have no idea really what the clarinets do, we're not going to really make a great team. So there's a level of respect, and the foundation of that respect is listening, I feel like.
So through teaching ensembles, music, you're teaching them life lessons on how to be citizens and how to be good, people by listening and working together.
Yeah, I mean, I hope, they may not realize that.
No, they don't.
And I don't need them to, but
no.
I just really hope it gets into their core somehow.
As they get older, yeah, you see it, but. And you mentioned gender, but it's also age. There's very often, other activities that they do are age biased too. It's the 8th grade basketball team or boys basketball team. And even then you have the freshman team at high school. You have the freshmen, and then the JV might be a few freshmen, the sophomores, maybe a junior. You might have a little bit of age, but in the high school groups, they're 9 through 12 all the time. So that's another issue that brings out the best in us. So in the middle school, what kinds of things do you do with the middle school students that you think is unique? Maybe not so much from everybody, maybe you provide that's something a little different.
You know, during the year, I like to sort of do stuff that's not necessarily kind of the same as what everybody else does. Like sometimes, like I like to do something like a little bit non-traditional. Like right now, I'm doing with the 8th grade a little project focusing on improvising and actually positioning the students out in the auditorium and out in the hallway. And we're going to try it on Tuesday night at our concert. And I like to do sort of like not really in the box little experiments sometimes, just as
kind of like you are in general.
Yeah, just don't stay in the box.
Yeah, yeah, that's take your personality to it.
You know, I think all of us probably have learned that over the years, like we all have a mentor, and we would love, we would love to teach like whoever, but students generally trust you the most when they sense that you're being you. So I think me just doing kind of off the wall stuff like that is kind of central to me, and I think hopefully the students can sense either that I'm being true to who I am or if I'm trying to kind of just be somebody else. So
yeah, well, it's interesting. I was talking to Bobby about the way he teaches, the way I observe him, and I've observed you for many years, and you're really even, you're the same all the time. It's amazing. You have a really great way of just being steady, and there's times when you'll be frustrated like anyone, but it's something that I don't see you showing the students. You might, be in a position where you'd have to be a little bit more aggressive with it, as far as, what you want to get their attention, but it's always about music. You focus, everything is about the music isn't good enough, or, let's make the music better by being better at listening and so forth. It's something that I think is unique for you.
And it's, sometimes it takes, I would obviously like everything to be great right now, but I've had to learn over the years that like it takes a group. It can take a long time. Like, I even just the 8th grade band like this year at the beginning of the year was in a certain place, and I was kind of impatient with it, and I just had to realize like, okay, I just gotta kind of keep doing what I know is right, and it'll get better eventually, and they did.
Yeah,
and I've
really improved a lot.
I've been pretty, we played the other day, and I was like, hey, this sounds like I imagine in my head it should in September. And hopefully just sort of this just steady, constant pressure and reassurance. Eventually they sort of find their way into a culture where they start to like the excellence.
Yeah. Well, you work with the high school marching band in the fall, and I know obviously Ahern does too, and Jenny. Did you do some work with the high school marching band?
Yeah, last year.
A little bit too, yeah. So that's another thing, you get into that, and you see, when you're working with the high school students, and then you go to the middle school in September, and the kids haven't even did dusting off their instruments from, June, and it's kind of like, wow, But I see you kind of, that's what I kind of mean. I see you kind of going, okay, this is where we're at, and this is what we're going to do to make this better, and.
He's powerfully patient.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Now, personally, I know you have a young daughter.
Yep.
Maddie. What's her real name? Like
Matea.
Matea. Yeah, I couldn't remember. Yeah, Maddie. She's a fireball,
Yeah.
She's awesome.
I know. Yeah.
And how old is she now?
She's 2.5.
2.5. Yeah. And your wife Heather is finally working out of her doctorate, right? She just received it. What is she doing?
She's a professor of ecology and evolution, and also deep sea biology at Boston College.
Boston College, right? Yeah. And you live in Norwood.
Yep, we just moved to Norwood.
Yep, you were in Randolph before that and moved to Norwood. Yeah. And so I know you're a big cyclist. You've always been into cycling.
Yeah, it's new-ish. I think I've been riding like 7 years.
Mm-hmm. A runner too. You've
yeah, I was a big runner, and then I didn't get like a bad injury. I like pulled my hamstring, which is like a 2-week recovery. Really, it's not like a bad injury, but I just sort of started riding instead, and then I just realized I liked it way better. And now I don't really run very much anymore unless I'm traveling and don't have my bike.
Okay.
Although I travel a lot with my bike now too. So, but yeah, I love, you know, I live sort of like being around middle school music students all day is kind of just like a loud day. And being on the bike is a very quiet place.
That's cool, yeah.
And for me, like, I find it very rewarding to push myself really hard physically and kind of get through it. It's a nice feeling for me, which is why I do like a lot of the uphill mountain racing that I do.
I know I've seen you, you know, the map, you show a map of what you're going to ride, and I go, you're going to ride 100 and something miles? Are you kidding me? It's amazing.
Feels good when you're done, though.
Yeah, that's great. All right, well, thanks, Tony.
Thanks.
Now, in the center of this, you know, the centerpiece, what's that tune? Centerpiece, right? You all know. Miss Cameron Tadoldi, Cammy, Miss Tadoldi, Foxborough grad. Again, I met you, personally, I met you in 10th, when you were 10 years old in 5th grade. And her and my daughter sat right next to each other, just happened to be that way. And I remember Misha was, you know, because she had me around, I taught her a little bit about flute, and she thought she was, oh, I'm cool, I can play the flute, no one else can. And she found out that Cammy, you know, after about 3 weeks, Cammy was like, get out of here. You know, before you know it, I think that was one of the things that kind of motivated you. You were like, wait a minute, this kid can play. I'm going to go for this. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
I am competitive.
Yeah, it seemed like you just went, okay, I'm going to do this. And she, of course, didn't. She thought she was already cool and, you know, could play. So she didn't work as hard as you did. And then you just kind of took over. And but anyway, I always admired your work ethic, you know, as a young, you know, student that I would watch, you know, grow up. And all of a sudden, you know, you were gone and you were in college, UMass, went to UMass, you played the bass, the upright bass in Foxborough as well, in the jazz band for 2 years, was it?
I think it was 1 year.
Just the end, just your senior year? Okay. And there was, you know, Mr. Massey said, we need a bass player, you're it. You know, you were playing flute in the jazz band, doing solos and things like that. I didn't mention that, but, you know, Cammy's a flute player, one of the best flute players I've ever heard, you know, fantastic.
Thank you.
And you do a lot of teaching. Kayla Parag is one of your students who's really become a fine student of the flute at her age now and as a senior. So when you went to UMass, you focused on music ed, you know, but you also played at a high level. You were in the top groups in the school, and with Bill Rowell, you know, was your conductor, right?
Yeah, I had missed Bill. Mr. Rowell I played with at the South Shore Conservatory when I was there.
That's right, okay. So he was already gone from UMass at the time.
Yes.
But you went there for 4 years, and then you went to Boston Conservatory for your master's in conducting and all those music ed kinds of things.
Yes.
You currently teaching at UMass?
I'm an adjunct faculty at Bridgewater State University, where I taught a string pedagogy course in their music education department this past fall.
Right, so you've been still doing some teaching at the college level a little bit too, yeah.
Yes.
And then you taught in Duxbury.
I did.
Was that were you in Lunenburg or something?
My first job was in Ludlow, Massachusetts.
Ludlow.
Exit 7 on the Mass Pike. And I as well taught K through 5 general music along with chorus. I enjoyed the job very much. I actually wanted to move back to the Boston area and, you know, be home with my family. And a job opened up in Duxbury, and I taught in Duxbury, where I taught band, chorus, and orchestra, 5 through 12, kind of the whole.
So you did some orchestra there too?
I did.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah.
So I did 1 year there, and then a position opened in Foxborough, and I went for it. Similar to Ahern, it was a no-brainer.
Well, I'm going to tell you the backstory of that. I don't know if you ever heard this or if I ever told you this. Mr. Massey and I were talking about that job. Mary Ellen Desjardins was leaving, the orchestra teacher, and we were looking for an orchestra director. And, you know, we were kind of just the two of us bantering back and forth about who we might know or who should we contact, you know, and he just, you know, the awkward silence I'm going on, and, well, you know, this and that. And he looks at me and he goes, Cammy Tadoldi. And I went, but Steve, she's a flute player. She's the best teacher I know, and she is who I'm going to get to do this job. And I went, wow, an orchestra teacher that plays flute. That's kind of unusual to me. You know, I'm thinking, but then I said, well, you've never been wrong before. You know, I mean, the guy knows, he's amazing. But you know, that's how he said it to me. He just looked at me and said, no, she's gonna get, I'm getting her. They're not gonna like it because I'm taking her out of Duxbury. And that was it. He knew he wanted you to come back, and you know, he just had such high respect for you. And then, as you know, just to kind of wrap up that little, you came and did wonders, obviously, with the orchestra. It flourished under your baton, and then here you are now as the director of music. You know, when Steve left, he had to, you know, I was in on the conversation with Debbie Spinelli, actually, about, you know, she was asking me, you know, when I first retired, she said, what's going to happen when Mr. Massey retires? And I said, well, you're not going to ever get one person to do all that stuff. And, you know, that was really how I thought about it. Yeah. And you're just not going to do that. So you're going to have to look at splitting that job up, and you know, so that's how you ended up with not because of me, I don't mean it that way, but you know, the thought process was, okay, let's try to make 2 jobs, you know, out of this, and you are now the current director of music. So how did you go about getting the orchestra from being, you know, it was okay, it was being done well, and it was fine, and everything was going along fine, but now it's exploded. What do you think is the impetus of that?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I came in and just kind of tried to be me and be very energetic and just get kids excited about making music, and particularly just excited about being in orchestra. And I think when you get kids excited about things and you show them that you have a high quality program for them, kids want to be a part of something that's really excellent. And they stuck with me and kept going. And I'm actually graduating this year, my first class of kids.
I was going to, I couldn't remember whether it was this year or last year was your first. This will be it, yeah.
So this will be my first class.
So from 5th grade, this is your 8th year?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Wow, that's amazing. So you look at this group of string players in the 5th grade. What do you do? How do you start them?
Actually, similar to what Jenny was talking about and Kirsten, I strongly believe in teaching fundamentals and basics, and making sure that students not only are starting on really high quality physical instruments, but also learning all the posture and technique. And I believe in teaching it correctly and right the first way, and being really adamant about that. So that, you know, down the road that we don't have to fix as many bad habits. You know, we all know that if we have bad habits, they're like really hard to fix. So particularly in music, and then teaching the basics of rhythm and pitch, and we sing in orchestra as well, and you know, finding melodies and tunes that are exciting for the kids to learn how to play, and that's appropriate for them at their age level. And then, you know, time on task, as Mr. Glynn was talking about before, just trying to get them to play as much as possible when I see them. So I kind of hope my students are actually kind of tired when they leave my classroom, because I want them to be playing as much as possible in the time that we have. So finding ways to do that with our students. And I would say that actually, if I had to pick a grade level that I really, really enjoyed, I love them all, but I think 5th grade is the most exciting for me to watch, because watching them grow from literally not being able to do anything to what they're being able to do now in June is just huge. It's a huge, huge learning process that really develops right in front of your eyes, and I love the excitement and energy that they have, that the 5th graders have.
Yeah. Well, you had to take violin lessons, right?
Did. So when I got the job.
And Mary Ellen stayed on the job.
Yep.
She does a lot of private teaching, and I know that you seeked out some.
Yeah, a lot of people had a lot of the same concerns that you did. That they were like, well, you're a band teacher. Why do you want to teach orchestra? And I was like, well, music is music. You can teach music through any mode, whether that be through an instrument or through your voice. And I really just needed to learn the techniques behind string teaching. And I wasn't a novice to string teaching by any means. I studied at a pretty high level string bass in college, and then did some string teaching in Duxbury. So I really just needed to learn more about the pedagogy and the background because, as I mentioned before, I really believed in, or I still believe in teaching students the right way in the basics. So I know myself personally that I learn best by doing. So I just went out and took private lessons on violin. I sought out cello teachers and picked their brains, and viola teachers and bass teachers, and pretty much anyone who's a professional string player. I ask them, there's a few common questions I ask them. I ask them how they teach the bow hold, and I ask them how they teach vibrato. Those are two like really debated topics in string pedagogy, and I always pick their brains, and now I have a pretty strong wealth of knowledge because I've had the opportunity to have those conversations with so many people in the professional world, and then get to share that with our kids.
And so recently you've had to give up a couple ensembles. Really, at the beginning, you did 5 through 12.
I did.
All the strings. And now, of course, now as the director this year, but even last year and the last couple of years, you've started to fan that out to the other staff members, and I was one of them at the time. I remember, you said, okay, you're going to teach a string class, and I remember you showing me, some basics, and it was challenging, so I think for all of us as, teachers, to teach an instrument that we're not that comfortable with was difficult. So you had to kind of teach the staff how to teach the orchestra, right? How has that been?
Well, first of all, I couldn't think of a better staff to do this. Miss Greenleaf is an outstanding teacher and a top-notch musician and incredibly intelligent. So I was excited when she was able to take on the 6th and 7th grade orchestra. And then I have Mr. Glynn, who teaches alongside me in 5th grade. And we find actually his knowledge with percussion is actually, if you had to equal a string instrument to a band instrument, I would say that percussion is probably the closest to a string instrument because of the physical nature of both of those instruments. So Mr. Glynn brings a really interesting perspective to my classroom, and then he himself has also done some research and learning how to play strings. And then Donnie has an extensive background with youth symphonies. He worked with the BYSO for many, many years, so he has a pretty strong knowledge about very high-level string teaching. So, I'd say we all sort of took this journey together, learning about the orchestra and really building the program. And, I got the position, yes, but we've all collaboratively worked together to really build the string program to where it is today.
Yeah. As a former teacher and without much experience in strings, when I go and sub for you or for any, and I get to work with the orchestra, I love it. It's really cool. I mean, I think, and when I share that, Jenny's shaking her head right away going, yeah, it's a really different animal. A band is, what I do, but, working with the orchestra, Donnie always said that. He goes, yeah, I'd rather take the orchestra. Like, sometimes we'll say, who's going to teach what? He'll go,
it's so quiet.
It's quiet.
It's like so soothing.
It's like getting on the bike, right? Yeah, that's cool. Well, I just really want to congratulate you on the excellence. The orchestra is just fantastic. It's always been the band in this town for forever. And even when we had an orchestra for many, many years, I don't know how, 20-something years or something, it's never been what it is now. So, that's a wonderful thing. And any of the people from the community that, maybe not even still realize the orchestra has achieved at an incredibly high level, it's equal to the band in every aspect. So that's wonderful. And so how about personally? You're also a CrossFit maniac. We see video of you picking up large, big old things that I go, I mean, I'm a pretty big guy. I go, I wouldn't even try that. What is CrossFit? How does that kind of, how did that get into your psyche?
Well, I would say that actually CrossFit is basically a foundation. It's foundational movements, fitness movements put together, including gymnastic skills, body weight skills, and Olympic lifting skills and cardio, kind of all put into one. And I don't know, a couple of years ago, I was just trying to find something that was not music. When you're a musician, it's often your hobby as well. And when your job and your hobby are the same, that can be really difficult. So I needed something completely different. And actually, I was literally within walking distance of a CrossFit gym when I was living in Dedham. And I walked by it one day and just said, I think I'm going to try this out. And I went in and fell in love immediately. And it's been really interesting for me to start something new. Like CrossFit, which is, I've never done anything like that in my life. And then to actually reflect on my own teaching and to then be back in the spot as a beginner, which I teach beginners every day. So then to think about what I feel like as a beginner and then to think about what my students feel like as a beginner. I was probably feeling some of those same things, and I actually think that CrossFit has really, my journey now with CrossFit has influenced my teaching in a very strong way, and that's certainly a conversation for another time. I could go on and on about it, but Mr. Glynn and I have had many conversations actually about this, so I actually encourage all of you to try something new in your life and, you know, get out there and just try something new. You know, there's so many adult ed classes around here and just lots of opportunities, and I think you just learn and grow. The more new things you try in your life, you just become a better person, I think. And so I feel really lucky for CrossFit, having that in my life, and I absolutely love it. And then I have a dog named Miles.
Miles.
Yeah, Miles is a legend. He's going to be 11 in July, so. But he makes appearances occasionally at, you know, the Cannon Bottle Drive, and so we'll see him at some marching band evenings.
The kids just go crazy when they see him.
Yeah.
He's just the coolest dog.
If I was allowed to bring him to work every day, I would. And I know he would love to snuggle up in the corner and greet everybody, but it's okay. Yeah, there would be a lot of dog hair, though.
And your family owns an island. I couldn't resist saying that. They own an island in Lake Winnipesaukee, right?
Yeah, as a child, I spent a lot of time in Lake Winnipesaukee. And that's another thing that I enjoy doing in the summers is spending time in New Hampshire when I get a chance to go up there. We also have a place up on Crystal Lake as well. And I love being in New Hampshire. It's quiet. It's a great place to read and reflect and just sort of slow down a little bit in the summer. I've always really, really enjoyed New Hampshire.
It's more like a cottage. It's not a year-round place at all.
No,
right?
we just summer use. Yep.
That's really cool. Well, thank you. You live in...
Currently live in Norwood.
Norwood. Now, you said Dedham.
Yes.
That was before, but now you're in Norwood. So
Yes.
you enjoy that? Do you get to spend any time in Norwood? Really? I mean, you go and sleep there, right?
Yeah, I do sleep there. You know, these certainly are longer hours, you know, September through June. But the hours are worth it, and the experiences that our students get, I think, in Foxborough is like none other. And we have heard that from the community. We have incredible support from the community. The administration is unbelievable with their support to the music program, and the staff here is just, it's one of a kind. And I also hear that too from the music community, and just, wow, you're so lucky. You're so lucky. They're like, how does Foxborough do it? And it's a lot of hard work and a lot of commitment, and really it takes that old saying, it takes a village. In Foxborough, you're doing it. You're really helping us have this opportunity that's really for our students, and and the community gets to really enjoy it as well. And I think the community's proud of the music program.
Yeah.
That pride is there, and I think that's really cool. And
yeah, when you see Jack Gothlet and you know, obviously Marge was always there with him too at every concert. Bevy Lord, member of the school committee, has been a teacher, and you know, people like that who come to every single event and can't wait for the next one. Those they're just two. I'm just mentioning two. There's tons of them. You see them at every concert. It's amazing, all the way through. Yeah.
Yeah, we're really lucky, and I should also mention, we have an outstanding support group. The Foxborough Music Association works collaboratively with us to really support everything that we do. And I would also go to Foxborough Cable Access, the amount of work that they do for us to help us promote and for the town to actually see what we do and see our concerts, and help us put on the productions like Pops and Bandorama. Again, we're really lucky to have this community here in Foxborough with these really professional organizations that work alongside us, and it's a group effort from a lot of people, but it's our students are lucky. They really get a wonderful experience at Foxborough Public Schools, and having this music program along with all the other programs that Foxborough offers. It's I just keep thinking how lucky they are. They really are.
That's great. Thank you. Last but certainly not least, the new daddy, Papa. Brian has a new child. We've gotten to meet your...
Talk about starting new adventures in your life.
Yeah, right.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
One hits you. No, that's great. That's awesome.
So Brian Raymond is the high school choral director, but also I know you've committed to going down and working with, I say going down, we always call it that because it's down in grade level, not in quality, of course, or anything, but just going to the middle school, you know, as often as possible and working with Kirsten and her groups, and totally committed to improving the vocal world that we now currently have. And that's another thing, you know, actually we were at the concert the other night, several people at the Pops concert, you know, was there, you know, talk to me all the time about, you know, oh my God, the choir, it's amazing. You know, it's really come totally changed, you know, from what it was over the years, you know, and you've really made a big difference here. Appreciate it. Brian is also a graduate of UMass, Amherst.
Same year as...
Same year,
Same
yeah.
year.
Yeah, we finished our
we were
music
in all
ed program
all the
together.
same classes. Yeah.
Right. And so I forget now, where did you go to high school? I know this,
So
but
I'm from northern Maine, a
Yeah,
small
but-
town called Millinocket.
Oh yeah, no way I'm going to remember that. I
An
thought I
hour
would.
north of- hour north of Bangor. So, wait,
There's
way up
actually there's more than moose up in that part
oh
of
yeah,
it.
plenty of moose. I used to actually ride a snowmobile to school in the morning. Yeah,
It's awesome.
yeah, it's yeah. There's a lot of moose and deer. It's beautiful up there, though.
Oh man.
I love when I get an opportunity to go up there. It's not very much, but when I get to go up there, it's just.
Your family has a big piece of property up there, right? Isn't that kind of a lot of expansion? There's a lot of land, and
It's the kind of place where, you know, my parents traded a truck for tree removal and, you know, bought the house next door just to make a bigger yard because it's $30,000 for a house. You know, a truck is more expensive than a house up there. So,
the truck for the tree removal again?
well, there was a bunch of trees and they wanted them removed, so they traded a truck. They had an old truck and they traded it for tree removal. Anyway, it's a whole different type of life, but it's a wonderful place, and I was really fortunate to grow up there, and then to come to UMass Amherst and come down to Massachusetts was really exciting and invigorating. But every chance I get to go up to Maine, I love to go up in the summer. So.
Now, what was your musical experience up there?
So when I was in high school, I just wanted to do everything I possibly could. I wanted to be in every ensemble and play every instrument, and so I just tried to take advantage of, you know, all the opportunities I had. I drove an hour every Saturday to take piano lessons with a teacher in Bangor, and I studied jazz and classical piano with him. And I was in, you know, jazz band and chorus and band, and you know, I was in musicals and jazz bands and everything I could possibly do. And
So obviously the school you went to was very ingratiating.
It was a modest program, but I mean, there were some offerings for me, and there was, there were things for me to get involved. So, and there were some young teachers that were fresh out of college, but they were great mentors to me, and supported me every step of the way, as did my parents, and and then when I got to college, I just kept going from there.
Yeah, that was a big move for someone to be that far up to go to UMass Amherst. That's like a city in itself, It must have been cool.
I tell you, when I went there, I had never even visited the school. I actually was really close to going to Berkeley, but then I had a change of heart and applied to UMass. So within an hour of the deadline, I show up for my audition. All the lights are off. I'm like, what the heck? I was at Amherst College. I was at the wrong school. I had never even been to Amherst, but I took my audition and I went, and it was the perfect place for me. Yeah. I loved my time at UMass, and I got to know these two when I was at UMass, and many great colleagues that are now teaching. It was a wonderful experience.
Well, even as a freshman, didn't you make one of the top ensembles there in the jazz?
I did.
Yeah.
I was in.
Brian's an unbelievable piano player.
Jazz
Unbelievably incredible piano player. So
well, I appreciate it.
We know that.
I was. It was exciting to be a part of that jazz program, and I did the jazz ensemble with Jeff Holmes for 5 years there, and I was in combos and. Got a chance to play some gigs. I even played a gig with her on upright bass.
Oh yeah,
we did a few together.
Yes, we did. Yep. So it was an awesome experience.
And then when you graduated, you got your first job where? Did you go to Plymouth right away?
I was in Plymouth.
Yeah.
I was applying all over the place, and then a job opened up where they needed somebody to teach piano and run a jazz choir, and it was like meant to be. I applied and I went down, and within, I had applied one day, and then the next day went down, got the job, signed an apartment. It was like within an hour, and then 2 days later I was moving. And it was just, I got super lucky to get a high school job down, because I always wanted high school. That was my dream.
Great.
And I got an opportunity to get started there. I started a jazz choir for the first time. They had never had one, and their music director there wanted one. So I started a jazz choir there. I was there for 3 years, and I taught piano. I taught a history of American popular music class, which was a lot of fun. I had a couple sections of that, and they got history credit for it. So I had, it was a packed class.
That's cool, yeah. Well, my nephew was in he
was
one of your first students there.
It was so awesome to work with him.
I remember him talking about you, and telling me how great, it was so much fun, and how, great you took them to Berkeley and they won this. It was amazing.
He was so fun to work with.
So that's you made your mark there, and then when you got the opportunity to make a move and this position opened here, how did that come about?
Well, in between, so I went to UNH for grad school, and then after UNH, I just wanted a high school job. I ended up on the Cape for a couple of years, and I was teaching down the Cape, and what that provided me was the chance to be a high school choir director. Because in Plymouth, I was just a music teacher. I taught classes, and then I had the jazz choir, but I got to be a full-time choir director, and I did middle school and high school. I was there for a couple of years.
What town was that?
It was in Mashpee, which is next to Falmouth, and
that's right.
It was a valuable experience for me, and like I said, gave me the opportunity to get myself started as a director, and gave me a lot of confidence. Those were my first choirs that I got to really conduct, not jazz choirs, but actual, regular concert choirs, and I had a chamber choir, and experienced preparing kids for auditions and preparing kids to go on to college for music. So it was a huge stepping stone. But I didn't live on the Cape, so I was kind of keeping my eyes out for opportunities to kind of get a job closer to where I lived. And then I saw the Foxborough job opened up, and at first I almost didn't even apply. It seemed like surreal. Like, that's really? And I thought, you know what, I'll put in a cover letter, and I'll put in an application, and you never know. And I got an email back from Steve Massey, and it was like, wow. It blew me away. And then I got the opportunity to come in. I was just so excited. And I remember I brought a picture of your nephew. I brought a picture of Colin Murphy to my interview, which had, in hopes that, hey, look, I know someone.
There's a connection here somewhere.
It just,
You actually did that.
I know. You told me that. I thought it was great.
So, like,
it got you the gig, didn't it?
You know, apparently. But yeah, and she was there, and Steve was there, and it was just, I was so thrilled and so humbled to be, you know, sort of considered for this position, and it's been an incredible journey ever since. You know, just diving into the choral program here, you know, just putting everything I have, all my passion into seeing it thrive and seeing it grow and evolve and seeing leaders emerge from it. And it's cool. I'm getting to a point now where some of the young students that I had the opportunity to kind of help bring into the high school program are now starting to become leaders. So there's a generation that's kind of starting to move through, and I'm seeing some of the, next year will be the freshmen. When I started, they'll be seniors next year. So it's kind of neat to start seeing.
So this is your third year?
This is my third year.
Yep. So your seniors will be, the freshmen will be seniors next year.
Yeah.
That'll be your fourth. Yeah, that's a cool feeling because it's all yours now.
It's just, every day has been incredible here. And magnified by the staff that I get to work with, which is unique. This is really unique. I know other jobs and have seen other places where, you know, the choir director is over here, you know, doing their thing with and band director's over here. When I student taught, I basically never even met the choir director. And then here it's so collaborative. I love going down to see, you know, Kirsten work. Every chance I get to go down to the middle school and see her work, I'm constantly inspired. And I'm constantly inspired by seeing all of these incredible musicians, incredible teachers work. It pushes me to be better. And, you know, they constantly give me suggestions. They make me think about things and question the way I'm doing things, and, you know, just strive for excellence. And it's been awesome.
It is such a great staff. It's incredible. Just, you know, watching it from outside is just,
without a doubt,
makes me feel great as a community member. Yeah. So let's talk about this new thing you have in your house.
And not the little beagle. They both keep me busy. No, he's incredible. He was born January 13th. You know, his name's Carter.
Yeah.
Carter James, and
was the 13th a Friday?
13th. No,
no.
It was a Saturday. It was a Saturday. And I've been so fortunate to have a wife who is so supportive, to allow me the freedom to do this job, because this job it's been a big challenge this year. I've had to learn a lot of new things. Personally this year, in terms of how do I put my passion into this. It's not even a job, you know, Foxborough Music, but to also come home every day and be a dad, and to be a husband, and to take care of my dog, and be present. And it's hard. It's not easy. But fortunately, my wife and my mother-in-law, who is watching Carter right now, they have been super supportive. They do such an incredible job with Carter, and I'm constantly learning, learning new things as I go. But I couldn't do this without their support, of course, without their love. And
your wife is a nurse too.
She
so
is.
She's got a full plate with her job as well.
I have so much respect. I couldn't do it. I've been to her floor several times, and I mean, I've only seen kind of an outsider perspective, but the work she does, I mean, I'm passionate to lead choirs. She's saving lives. So the stakes are so great that it's hard for me to really comprehend, but it's amazing what she does.
Yeah. She's cool. You know, I watch her with Carter, and it's like she's so natural. Yeah, it's
The
great.
instincts are just off the charts.
Yeah.
Brian's are not.
No. What do I do?
He's still nervous.
I can't get him. I can't
The
hold
head
him
goes
right.
this way, and you know.
Oh, to get the cradle hold was just, oh, it's so hard. I'm just going to sit him right here on my knee.
Well, that was amazing. You know, it was great to hear. You know, one of the threads was that I was listening to everyone was that everyone had other experiences before coming here. You know, that you all had, you know, an opportunity to be somewhere else. And so when you kind of found this place, you're staying. I mean, this is where, you know, if anybody's, you know, going to stay on a job, this would be the place to do it. And with the support that you have and the, you know, the love that is between you all is so cool. It's great to, like I said, be a community member and to be so fortunate to have this in my community, you know, and that's why I'm talking to the community here in general. We as a collective community are lucky to have you. We're, you know, hopeful that you will continue to stay and grow and you know,
Well, you were part of the initial that built it. You know, it's like 20 years ago when I came here, I was in the middle of another year and this weird position came up and it was like October. And as soon as you see Foxborough, it's not just now with these people. When I saw Foxborough, I go, oh my gosh, Foxborough has an opening. It's in the middle of the school year. Everybody knows it's one of the best.
That's how it was for me 34 years ago, whatever.
It's
you know,
really well known.
yeah.
You guys built this, you know what I mean? It wasn't there when Steve started, I don't think.
No,
as
he
profound.
In 1980 was his first year, so yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, thank you all so much for coming here to do this and allowing me to be part of this in any way that I can and you know, continue to be. I really enjoy it so much. And I'm going to say goodbye. Let's all say goodbye to the folks. Thank you for joining us today. This is some of our friends in this community, and you're very fortunate to have such a passionate and well-rounded music staff.